and welcome to Real Talk. Just a quick update from myself. Last 2 weeks, I've kind of been on the road, helped a gentleman relocate from the great state of Florida to the what my Buckeyes would call the Team Up North land, up into Michigan. And most people would spell that with an M, but we don't as Buckeyes. Um, just so you know, the trip went really well. I'm in Muncie visiting my granddaughters now and enjoying some time here. And I've got a very special guest in the house, Mr. Commissioner Phil Stokes. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, John. Good to see you.
So, give us a quick city update on what's happening in the city. I know we have the police department, new station got kind of christened the other day, and things are happening there. So, can you give us an overview of what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, August commissioners normally have off, but while staff pulls together the budget, the final pieces of the budget that we'll revisit in September and get approved. But stuff goes on at the city. We had new fire station 87 opened up in Welland Park. Um, so that's happening. The main fire station down 81 by City Hall is well under construction. The emergency operations center is under construction. Price is moving along. So there's lots of action in the city of Northport.
And that's a good thing for a change, isn't it?
Well, a lot of these projects should have got done years ago, so it's nice to see them finally getting across the finish line.
What are some big projects that we need to start paying attention to in the future?
Well, I would say, you're going to see you know, every year we do a handful of water structures. Price will move along into next year. Every year we repave over 20 miles of roads in this city. Um, you'll see, might be early on the solid waste treatment yet, but you know, now that that's being assessed this year, so it'll be a year or two out before we see that start to go to work. But a lot of the projects that we've been talking about right along that finally are, one way or the other starting to get done.
You know, what's it take for the commission to get some of these projects that we've talked about in the past? What's it take to get them going in Northport? As you know, there's five commissioners. You've got the past that you have to deal with. You've got funding issues across the board. A lot of these issues that are out there, um, they take sometimes a couple cycles to get going. And we've talked about borrowing power in the past and why that's so difficult. But you know, we're entering into another hurricane season or kind of midpoint now, I guess, and nothing actively out there right now that's disturbing at this point. But there's been a lot of changes and a lot of things happening within the funding sources of FEMA. You guys all have to look at the totality of a lot of what you're asking to do within the confines of what you're doing it, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, we can only work with the resources we have available, so we'll see. My take is that FEMA's probably not gonna, at the next set of storms, I don't think they're gonna be reimbursing at the rate they were in the past. So, I would say there's gonna be a chunk of dollars that probably municipalities, local governments are not gonna see coming back to them. But, that's anybody's guess. Who knows? I don't know. But in the meantime, we're moving along on the court validation process because even with property tax looming, the reality is we're not going to be borrowing any money for any projects in the near future, certainly until we know what's going to happen in November. But at the same time, we do need to know if we can borrow for things other than general obligation and revenue bonds. If we can do that, then there's a little less concern in the event, or not in the event, but when the next heavy storm comes and we get a lot of damage, there are federal and state borrowings that most of which, or a good number of which, are forgivable, but you have to be able to borrow in order to bail out. Otherwise, we're going to end up depleting our reserves once again. And I don't think that was a smart thing to do. But luckily, we didn't have a back-to-back storm. So, again, the
We were
challenges are
close though.
we were close. We were
So
close. I mean, the challenges are still there. So, you do need to prepare backup because um, it's not a question of if, it's really just a question of when.
well, so let me stay there for a second because I know that you're prepared to answer the question, like everybody that's in office or potentially running. But when the citizens vote not to have the borrowing part of it, and I've talked to you guys enough where I understand all the philosophies behind both sides of it, because there was some restraints put in there, there were some guardrails put up, and I'm a little confused by the vote back then, but I also am one of the opinion that our government officials have to find solutions rather than create hurdles. So or have the hurdles stay in place. There has to be a work through process. How do you address the sense that we've asked to find a way to finance things as a city?
Well, I mean, you know, it certainly the charter, states it states a couple of things. It states the city of Northport may borrow money. Then it goes on to say the city of Northport may not borrow money for general obligation and revenue bonds without a public referendum and a vote of the citizens. So if it comes to anything big that requires that kind of borrowing, like price widening, like a police headquarters, I don't see how you finance those any other way other than a public referendum. The citizens have to vote on it. In effect, they're deciding whether or not they're going to be willing to tax themselves to pay for it. And clearly they've said no. Okay. So with that, reality, all we can do is look to some of the other avenues for some of the other projects. I mean, borrowing in the event of an emergency, if we're allowed to borrow from the state and federal government for disaster recovery, well, that's not a bad thing. So if that's what our court validation process tells us, that under certain circumstances we have the ability to borrow, that would be a good thing to know. It's a tool in the toolbox that will help us. Certainly funding projects, infrastructure projects with borrowing at this point in time, with the financial instability that exists in this state, with tax reform looming, I would say there isn't anybody who with any fiscal responsibility that would do something like that. So the effort of this particular validation is more for the purpose of determining whether a court, after interpreting our charter, will decide that there are certain circumstances, certain types of borrowing the city can do. That's what we need to know. It's, if no, then fine. We'll look to other alternatives. We'll have to do what we did before, is use our reserves up every time we have a storm if we cannot borrow in other ways. But we need to know. I mean, I think it would be irresponsible not to know. So that's why we're going through the process, and we'll see what happens.
And would you consider that a work around the voters, or would you consider that a good, safe way?
No,
Go
the
ahead.
over and over. I mean, people say we voted against these projects. No, that was never what was asked of the citizens. What was asked was very simply, can we use revenue bonds or general obligation bonds to fund those projects? Because those two forms of financing afford us the lowest interest rates possible, but they can't be done very clearly without a citizen's approval. Citizens said no. So that's why we're funding the solid waste transfer station with a one-time assessment. People are upset about it, but we said from the very beginning the solid waste transfer station is a project that will save this city millions and millions of dollars. It will take trucks off the road from having to go up and back to Sarasota all the time. It will save us in labor. It will save us in equipment. It will save us in gasoline. It will save the taxpayers millions of dollars, and it will pay for itself in less than 7 years. So we never said we wouldn't do the project. In fact, we said we were going to do the project. We just wanted to fund it in the most economical way. That was the ask to the citizens. They said, no, we respect that, but we're going to do the project that we know needs to get done. That is what we're tasked with. This is not a government that goes out for referendum for every decision it makes. That is not our form of government. We're a representative form of government, and the elected body tries to make the best decisions for the most people. Decisions about what projects get done are based on a methodology of our capital improvement project system. We go through it, there's stages, it's a process. Once we determine what we need to borrow for or what we need to fund to get done, we figure it out, we move forward. The ask was nothing more than what funding method? And the citizens chose to say no. I mean, I don't know how much more we could have educated people on exactly what the ask was. It was only 75 words, and it explained very clearly what the ask was. So we respect that. I mean, what we're trying to do now is just get things done that need to get done. Otherwise, this city will continue to repeat Price Boulevards. I mean, how much more do people need to see than how it doesn't make sense to kick the can down the road over and over and over again for things that have to get done, that need to get done for the health and welfare of this city? And a $5 million project became 90 because nobody had the guts to make a decision to get out there and borrow the money necessary to widen that road. We got the same thing with other projects in this city. You know, we're growing and we need to stay up with that growth. And you know, we got to follow the law, and we got to make our decisions based on what the law says and do it in the most economically sensible way. That's what we're trying to do.
And it's you know, just because you're a commissioner and you have the three votes doesn't necessarily mean that you can change those things. You still have to follow the guidelines that are set forth. I want to try to educate on the not only just the guidelines of what we do in the city, but couple that with what the state may mandate in some of these decisions that you guys make. There are some key things that you have to pay attention to, and we have to listen to the legal side of things too, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, if you want to point to anything, it's our land use regulations. Uh, Basically, the state has preempted any local government from enacting any more burdensome or restrictive land use regulation on any developer. So, consequently, as long as it meets with the comprehensive plan and the Unified Land Development Code, it's a go. And we can't come in and create more burdensome or restrictive land use regulations. We have things in our rewrite from the ULDC a year and a half ago that we can't implement because Bill 180 and the Byrd Harris Act prohibit us from doing so. And we're going to have to wait till August of 27 when supposedly 180 will expire, as long as there's not another storm in between that extends it another year. I mean, year after year after year, the state has passed legislation that basically limits local government. And it's not easy to be able to do the things you need to do. Our city is platted quarter acre lots. People keep coming in here, they keep buying, they keep growing, they keep expanding. We need to make sure that this growth is managed properly, and we need all the tools in the toolbox to do it.
Well, we got some we have some open space yet that we have to build in. That there's hot topics out there about data centers and different things like that, but not to have the show be specifically on data centers because I think that the public needs to get more educated. I think that the city needs to get more educated as a whole. But I also think that there's a couple factors that you guys have to deal with when you're talking about these data centers and different organizations that are going to focus on Northport as a home base. Um, they have to fit within the guidelines of restriction. So the LDC is a important part, but also the state government. You've got some people above you that may regulate a little different than you. How much is that going to play a factor in future of Northport?
Well, I mean, you asked a bunch of different things. Are you
I did.
referring to data centers? Are you referring to
I
everything in general?
data centers in a whole because first off, data centers can be a small, large, or a medium in its way of format. But it, go back 10 years ago, 5 years ago, when everybody was complaining about you guys were doing so many mattress stores here or car part stores here. You weren't doing those things. Those were coming because of rooftops.
Yep.
And so everybody thinks that the city commissioners are doing all these things to fill their own pockets, your own coffers, and you get accused of doing a lot of things. And I see the chuckle because you know exactly what I'm talking about. And that's kind of not how it works. And it doesn't matter who's in office. These things are coming our way because we're changing as a city, and our population has changed enough now where a lot of these organizations are looking at us for workforce. A lot of the hospital is a key factor in that. We didn't get one; we have four.
Exactly.
How did we get four? When we couldn't get anybody to look at us before. Well, it's called population.
It. That's it. And
And
all
so
commercial businesses come where the people are.
they do. And so we've had some pretty successful things happen with that. We've had some major players with Welland Park come into town. We've got the new high school up there, and we've got some updating going on in Northport High School, it was definitely needed and paid attention to. But a lot of these factors are out there, and they're not all done by the commissioners by saying we want all these things here. You guys are not actively pursuing those things, right?
No, I mean our economic development department division is out there, making groups aware of Northport and what it offers, potential commercial developers. But as far as public, residential population, that just happens. That happens because we're still one of the most affordable cities in the area. We're in reasonably good proximity to beaches and to major metropolitan areas. And, there are properties available and people are going to keep coming here. It's one of the safest cities in the state, and the schools are a great part of, Sarasota County. It's inevitable the county's going to continue to grow as it has.
It's funny. You just gave a commercial on Northport and people's property values, and everything that you just checkmarked, they should be pounding their chest about because their
Well,
property values are staying the same, even with the economic downturn that we've had a little bit of which we felt the bounce back from these things, and we know this from the history of Northport and surrounding communities. When we do bounce back economically, we don't bounce a little bit, we bounce back huge. And these conversations about the infrastructure and all the things that we're talking about, they actually matter for the future of Northport. Would you agree?
no, no doubt about it. I mean, there's a lot of balls in the air. It takes all these moving pieces to come together to make this, to help the city grow. It just can't continue to grow residentially. I mean, the burden, the tax burden falls entirely on residential property tax owners now. And we've been saying that for years. We've got to develop a commercial base. As you reach that 100,000 population milestone, You start attracting all kinds of great businesses. And with that will come good jobs and better jobs. You know, we are going to become a South County medical mecca. There's no doubt about it. Northport's already starting that. It's coming faster than people realize. Soon there'll be all kinds of medical practices and ancillary businesses that pop up all over the city. And that's going to be huge for us. It's going to keep people off the roads, driving elsewhere. I mean, 90% of our working population leaves the city. If we can pick up 10 or 15 or 20% of that and keep them here, it'd be a godsend. Take pressure off the roads, make it a little easier for people. They can live, work, and play here. I mean, all these things have been in the works for years now to put all the pieces in place to help this city grow in a responsible way. And it's inevitable. Change is inevitable. It's a matter of how you manage it, how do you try to make it work. And with change, it does come growing pains. It inconveniences some people. It causes hardship for other people. But on the whole, this city is growing, and I'm hoping that most people feel that for the most part we're trying to retain our character as a residential community, and at the same time build a commercial base of products and services that our citizens have been asking for a long time. And people want more stores, they want more restaurants, they want more upscale, and it all comes at a price.
And you know what? You said something there that I think uh, this has not been a quiet conversation. This has been the 25 years that I've been in Northport. This topic has not changed. The people driving away to go to work has been a problem for our city for a long time. Having them stay local feeds our local businesses, it feeds our local restaurants, it
Yes.
stabilizes our interior markets, and it promotes bigger and better growth for things that we need, such as uh, anything that has to do with kids. Uh, our city is full of kids. Our
Well,
average age is, I think, still 54,
I
which
think
is
it's even
unheard
lower
of.
than that.
What's it?
I think it's even lower than that.
It may be, but if the focus is just in our population, we have to look at things differently than other communities already, because the
Yeah.
average age of Venice, I think, is 80 or 84. So
Probably pretty close.
yeah, and it's a complete change, and the confusion between where Venice is and where Northport is. I still don't understand the argument, because the two things don't touch.
Right.
People are confused about that, but it's such an easy thing to open up a map and realize where you live. It's harder to adjust to a mailing address, I guess. But that being said, look at what Northport is doing in Welland Park, and the offset of the commercial growth there. What gets paid for when commercial growth is implemented in by the builders? And I'm going to take the word away from somebody out there that keeps using it, but this dark money statement that people have, that you guys keep using to fill your wallets with, it's BS. Um, these businesses are coming here because we have the availability to grow it, and we also have the infrastructure now that allows the growth to happen. And there are needs within the city that the government officials kind of have to provide the population that's coming into Welland Park. So, fire department, police department, all the safety factors, let alone the service factors of trash and water, sewer, and different things like that. Those are all a major factor in what you guys decide and how to manage. Correct?
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that we're seeing the newer construction being at a much higher price point than say the traditional average property value in Northport is a good thing. We used to talk about for every quarter acre single family home that went up, the cost of providing services was more than the revenue coming in from that property. But that's based on a very low average appraised property value. Most everything that's being built now is up in the three, four, 500,000 and up, especially Welland Park area. And for that, there's a net return. when a financial presentation was put together not that long ago on what the proposed build out in Welland Park will look like for the city of Northport, you're talking about in excess of roughly $10 million net of expenses that returns to the Northport coffers to help support the city of Northport, because we all pay into the village. And yet, you know, the Welland Park development has been a contribution to the city, and it'll continue to be, as will the growth out east in the commercial and industrial sectors, and part out east off Toledo Blade, the innovation corridors. All these areas are growing up inevitably, and they'll all make their contribution to the city, which will help to keep property tax low. I mean, the cost of providing services, if you have no commercial revenue, falls on all our backs who own houses here in this city. We need to spread those costs among all the businesses that are coming and selling us goods and services. Why shouldn't they pay their share? And they're welcome here. It's a big city. We got lots of space for them. And most of the services and products that they're bringing are ones that our citizens demand and need and want, even down to the storage places and the car washes who people say another car wash. But if they weren't needed, if people weren't going to them, if they weren't successful businesses, they wouldn't be here. 50 to 70, 80 new small and mid-sized businesses coming to Northport every single quarter. The city just continues to grow, and it's all going to inure to the benefit of all of us.
Well, and so you talk about the new business growth. Can we talk about why the citizens should be not just embracing it because they're getting more, and they're getting more local, so we can shop local, we can stay local. But how has that helped with governing of taxes and tax increases to the citizens? Isn't new growth a great way for us to help adjust for some of these things because of the style of growth that's coming?
Well, sure. I mean, there's no doubt about it. As we build our tax base, if you're efficient with how you spend the tax dollars, yeah, the net result is to keep is every year we experience 5, 6, 7, $8 million worth of growth just to provide the same level of services because let's face it, union increases come through, benefit costs go up, materials, supplies, all the things that it takes to run, the cost of equipment, the cost of machinery, things continue to go up. I mean, everybody feels inflation in their own private lives. The city feels that as well. So you have that hurdle every single year that has to be overcome. So we need to be more and more efficient. But as our city grows and our commercial tax base especially increases, where the revenue increase exceeds the costs of providing those services, it will come back to help us as a city overall. I mean, we have very little, if any, debt, and any that we do is only going to be driven by our ability to pay for it, unless citizens were to vote to actually increase taxes to pay for something big. So, we're operating a pretty tight economic ship here, despite the fact that we're growing so fast and so hard. And, the more commercial development we get, the better off we are and the easier it is to continue to provide high quality services and amenities to the residents without having to raise taxes.
I talked to Chief Titus. Missed him last week just because of the transition, along with the police department this month. But in the past, short past, we've talked a lot about the budget and different things. I want to highlight that this current commission last year set forth a task of cutting our expenditure. Can you talk about why that was important for you as a commissioner and how we performed as management in reducing the expenditure by, I think it was like 5%?
Yeah. Well, I mean, last year, okay, I asked for $3 million in cuts, and we didn't get it. I wanted to give that back to citizens in a rollback rate, a lower millage rate, and it didn't happen. Then we went into this budget cycle, and we again came back hard with we need to make cuts. And if we were going to be able to fund any projects at all, incur any kind of debt at all for any of these smaller projects that didn't require general or general obligation or revenue bonds, then we were going to have to do it without raising people's taxes. And the only way to do it was to cut that budget back. And we set aside this year $3 million for debt service. Like I said, it's in fund balance now. It'll stay in fund balance because obviously, with the uncertainty of property tax reform, nobody's going to be borrowing any money that I can see. Doesn't make any sense to me to want to borrow money for any project till we know how hard we're going to be impacted if the vote in November is in favor of reform. So we'll see.
Right? And I got to tell you, I'm laughing about this because I have a feeling people are going to vote for it, and they they're going to try to figure out the workaround around everything. Talk about a unique situation to be in as a city commissioner. You're already trying to figure things out with your hands kind of tied behind your back with not being able to borrow money now, but have the state come in and cut. And we're not talking about a self-imposed 5%. We're talking a major, because 5%, how much was 5% of our budget?
Well, to give you an idea, I mean, if the first year, if property tax reform passes, it's $8.8 million reduction to the general fund. In year two and each year thereafter, about 15 million. So it's a pretty big chunk. I mean, our public safety costs are well in excess. I mean, they're what, 65% or so of our general fund. So, you know, 5% cut saves a chunk of money, I mean, it's like trying to put a band-aid on a leg that was cut off. I mean, if property tax reform passes, okay, there will need to be some way to fund public safety. And if there are no new funding pathways, no special district for public safety like there is with road and drainage and solid waste, and enterprise funds like with utilities, unless we can fund through assessment public safety, the money's got to be used that's available in the general fund. Well, you have to look at what else gets funded by the general fund. Parks and Recs get funded. Our natural resource department, our communications department, our economic development department, our social services department. Um, all those departments and more get funded out of general fund. If we spent every dollar that went to those other departments and divisions, we could probably make up, if we used most of it, we could probably make up the shortfall from property tax reform. So you can see how devastating it would be to the other parts of our city that provide services that people have come to expect and demand. I mean, you said it, a city, the youngest city in the county, average age, my understanding, is under 50, and there's kids everywhere. If we don't have the amenities and the services that our citizens have been used to, I mean, there's going to be people are going to be crazy. And if you don't spend the money on public safety, the city won't continue to remain one of the safest in the state of Florida. And if you're not a safe city, people don't want to live here. So, we're going to struggle with it. And my guess is the state, since it's a process, if the voters approve this in November, it'll take at least a full session for the state legislators to figure out how they're going to plug the holes. How is it that local government is going to fund public safety? Because there's not enough money in the general funds to do it. And I think they know that, but they're waiting to see if the citizens voted anyway. And then they'll figure it out. And then we'll see if there's additional funding sources. Those have to be done at the state level. If they were to say you can create a special district for funding police, that would take a lot of heat off of all the other departments in the general fund. But frankly, it's like taking the money from the left pocket of a taxpayer and take it out of the left pocket. Either way, we taxpayers pay for the services that we come to expect and want, and the amenities that we expect and want. So it's a balancing act. Now, the good thing about tax reform is no matter what new sources the state government may try to come up with, it's not going to be enough. And the shortfall will force local government to be more responsible. I think we're responsible now, but what we're going to do is make hard decisions like what amenities and what services are not truly essential that government's been supplying and providing that we don't have to. Do you need a community center? Do you need a community center with a gym in it, with a workout room in it, or can people just go to private business and pay Planet Fitness or whoever else, for their amenity and social services? All us taxpayers, we pay social service tax dollars to the county. What do we get back for it? I couldn't begin to tell you what we get back from the county for the tax dollars we pay. So if we closed our social services department, lock, stock, and barrel, there's $1 million a year, three-quarters of a million. Tax savings right there. We'll send people to Sarasota to go see the Sarasota County Social Services. Is that what we want to do? What about the people here who can't get there? That's why we started a city social service department because the county couldn't provide it and people couldn't get there. Now we're going to have to make hard decisions. What about communications? People want to know everything we do, every decision we make, how the sausage is built. We have a staff of quite a few people that I think do a great job. Are we going to be able to maintain that? I couldn't begin to tell you. If tax reform comes, how are we going to be able to do that? I mean, I can go down each and every department. Parks and Recs, are we going to be able to have as many? Are we going to be able to spend the money to make sure that they're upgraded and cleaned up and look good? Are we going to have to stop cutting the lawns in the public right of ways, and space it out another week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks because we don't have the money to do it? I don't know. It all depends on what this actually enactment legislation looks like if the citizens vote for tax reform. And we'll see that over the next year or two. And then as a government, we will do what we always do, which is figure it out. Figure it out and try to balance what people pay in taxes with the quality and the quantity of services and amenities that they want and they need.
So it's funny that you laid out all of those things. None of it was implemented by any of the commissioners that are currently there. This is all above. This is all the voters and the state implementing it in.
Well,
And
sure.
so the solutions have to come from local, but you have to wait on the solutions until the vote. So November,
Pretty
whether
much.
people like it or not, November is going to be a huge election. And it's not just who's in office; it's what you're voting for.
That's right.
You better
And,
you better check your
and
wallet because
well, it's going to take it's going to take hard work. It's going to take creativity. It's going to take really I mean, if there were ever a set of challenges for commission coming up, it's going to be how to deal with all this. I mean, the city's not its growth trajectory is going to continue. Now, we're going to have where we had one hand tied behind our back. Now we're going to have close to two hands tied behind our back. If and it's not like we won't deal with it. We will deal with it the best we can. In the end, it will always be better. In the end, we'll find ways to save some money. We'll find ways to do things more efficiently, but it will come with some crunch. I mean, there are going to be things we're going to have to look at differently. We're going to have to do differently. We're going to have to maybe do without. and hopefully the state will see. Northport's not going to be unique in finding
Not at all.
itself short of funding for certain very critical services. All local governments and municipalities and counties are going to struggle with this, and unfortunately, we're going to be a bit at the mercy of the state and what they're willing to do in the way of legislating our ability to tap funds to pay for critical services and high valued amenities. I mean, with the push to to downsize the federal government in this country, one would think the state would want to do the same thing and push to the people down through local government. The closer you get to the people, the better opportunity you have to create direct benefit for its citizens. And yet the state seems to be consolidating authority at the state level and leaving local government really impotent to do a lot of the things it needs to do. People, this is such a property rights state. The builders of both residential and commercial development are moving right along, and local government doesn't have the legal ability to make sure that it's being done in the most responsible ways. There are many developers that voluntarily work with us and cooperatively. Look at Welland Park. Law mandates 35% open space. We have almost 50% open space because this developer felt that that was in the best interests of the development here in Welland Park. But without regulation, that doesn't mean that every developer will do that. It means the city has to be able to make sure there's proper landscaping, proper parking, proper setbacks, that signage is right. All those things that we try to regulate that we have a hard time doing now because the state's taken away our authority and nobody seems to do anything about it.
Well, and we also there's some things that happen that people don't know about with some of these apartment complexes, the low income housing that we don't even have the authority to tell them no now, correct?
Well, look at what happened. Perfect example. Look at the county. The county commission voted for six, I think it was 6 or 7 projects they voted no on that were more affordable housing or workforce housing projects on land that the city commission didn't feel that type of housing should go in. They went up against the Live Local Act. They denied the developers, and they're now in a series of multi-million-dollar lawsuits that are going to cost the county and the county taxpayers, which include us, a fortune because they're breaking the law. Because Live Local that the state passed allows developers to build pretty much where they want, and local government can't stop it. Maybe they should have sued the state over the Live Local Act. That might have been a different approach to take, but they didn't choose to do that. So now they're all being sued individually. I mean, how's that make sense? And how's that going to be, you know, cost effective for all us taxpayers who are now going to have to pay for those legal fees? So it's a constant uphill battle against state preemption. But when the day's done, we don't have you. You can sit here and candidates can sit here and hypothesize like my opponent does and others do about all the things they think they can and want and will do. But the reality is you got to follow the law first. The law's the law. You got to follow the law. And then you got to figure out how to work with the resources you got. That's the only thing we can do.
You
And
know,
we do that every day.
you remind me of a conversation I had with past Commissioner Alice White, who is truly our official tree lady, um, and pie lady, by the way, amazing pies. But she went into office literally with a mindset of trees. Did accomplish a lot with that, but through interviewing her and through the processes there, um, also had to admit that she couldn't come in and just do the things she wanted to do or thought were going to be easy to do because there are restrictions about how you have to handle that, and you just talked about them. Um, those are key factors in our leadership that we have now, and I want to branch off of that though a little bit and go back to staff for a second because I think we have probably right now one of the best staffs that I've seen in 25 years at our current government. And that's because of their experience and everything that they've kind of restructured at City Hall and made flow better. We had all kinds of issues at City Hall that have been upgraded and improved, and yet I see them get kind of hassled at times. But wouldn't you say that our experience at City Hall is helping us through some of these times that have come and will be coming in the future, especially if these things pass in November?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're very fortunate to have built a staff of what I consider to be great subject matter experts. They are all, outstanding individuals. All our directors are, and the folks that run our city on a day-to-day basis, from city manager on down, our city attorney, our city clerk, and all their department heads. These are people who come with tremendous talent. They could go anywhere in this country and get a job making at least what they're making here, if not more. Go into private industry, they could make even more. They're that talented. You know, what I think our battle's been is to take the elected body, the commission of the city of Northport, and bring it up to a standard, okay, of quality and quantity that's necessary to help work side by side with a staff this good. And that's been been a work in progress. I mean, a city this size with the challenges it has, you have to remember the elected body is the decision maker, not staff. Commission. Commission makes the decisions. When things go good, when things go bad, it's commission. The buck ends with the commission, not the city staff. And it's our responsibility to do what we can to keep a good balance in our government and to make sure that we are hearing what our citizens are saying and we're balancing that against what we know the law says and what our resources avail ourselves to. That's the balance. It's not just doing what people tell you they want you to do. You got to sit down and you got to figure out what your resources are. You got to figure out what you can and can't do and what's legal. And so, there's our balance. So, thank God we got a strong staff. And I want us to have the strongest commission possible. And I think we got some real talented people. We have, we don't all think the same about everything, but we're all working at it pretty hard these days. And that's a good thing. And I think when people go to the ballot box, they need to think about that. We need people with some experience. We need people with the resources to be able to meet some of these challenges because they are a coming. We're already facing a lot of them, and it's not an on-the-job training thing. It takes time. Look at David and Dimitri. It's taken a better part of a half of a term to really start to find their sea legs, and they're good. They're thinking, they're working, they realize what they got to put into the job in order to get the job done. I think we're working pretty good, the five of us. But, the challenges are there. And sometimes what we as a commission think about what's best for the health and welfare of the citizens may not always be what is in the financial best interest of the city, even. And we're finding that. This data center thing is a perfect example of that. And, we have to stand strong as a commission and do what we believe is best for the citizens in the city. And staff is doing the same thing. They come at it with a little different perspective, and that's a challenge every single day. Every single day, that's what we do.
And uh, the data center controversy, it's just not here. It's all over the nation right now. There are different cities being looked at for different ways with this new technology that's coming out. There are cities that have data centers in them of old that technology has changed.
Sure.
Gosh, we're 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we weren't even talking AI, and now everybody talks AI, and it's like, okay, well, that came out of nowhere. But so did the data centers, and so did a lot of these things that happened. But within those same areas, infrastructure actually happens. There's different jobs that come across. It may not be the data center itself that has the influx or influence of jobs, but it's the surrounding businesses that may open up or the communities that are built around them. We're looking at all aspects of those while keeping a focus on the best outcome for the city, correct?
Well, I'm sure that's exactly what staff's looking at. And from my perspective, this data center whole controversy comes down to one really very basic, simple thing. City of Northport's comprehensive plan in ULDC does not have anything specific in it in the way of regulating data centers. None. The technology that exists out there to mitigate the areas of water, power, sound, and air quality exist. And the technologies are continuing to grow and expand all the time. So I have no doubt that there is the capability to build these things the right way, a way in which mitigates all four areas of concern, makes sure stormwater doesn't get polluted or the water table doesn't get affected. I mean, there's all kinds of technology. My problem is very, very simple. Northport has no regulation. And according to the state, if you read Bill 180 and Bert Harris, it tells you local government may not enact any more burdensome or restrictive land use regulation. Well, I got to tell you, I put it on the agenda for the 31st. And one of the things I'm going to hopefully hear a good discussion on is exactly that, tasking staff with writing the regulations concerning data centers so that nothing but the highest standards of technology could be used if in fact they have the legal right to build anyway, and if there's no legal way to stop them, and all the areas of concern can be mitigated. We need to make sure that whatever gets built in the city, whether it's a data center or anything else, gets built in a way that protects the health and welfare of the citizens of the city. And we don't have regulation that does that. And that's what needs to be written, in my opinion. And then if the developer chooses to challenge that, I would write it and voluntarily present it to them and say, look, you want to be good neighbors? You want to be part of our community? Are you willing to build whatever you want to build to the highest standards of technology to mitigate all the concerns any of our citizens could have? So there's no water being used, there's no power drain on us. The air quality and the sound are mitigated so that no one can hear it or feel it. If you could do all those things, would you do it voluntarily? If they do, hey, that's great. If they don't, we'll have some regulation with which to adjudicate this. Because to me, this is a hill worth dying on in our city. This is a project that has obviously can have some upsides, but not at the expense of the health and welfare of the citizens of our city. That is why right now I am opposed to this. I've said it publicly. I'll say it over and over again. I'm an advocate against them because the city of Northport has no ability to regulate them. And I'm not about to run the risk of just simply wanting to trust a developer who's going to say, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. We'll work all this out. Well, you know what? If it isn't in writing, if it isn't, the regulations aren't enacted by the city government, then I don't see how we enforce anything. And they're going to say, look, we built whatever we had the money for. And why would anyone spend more money on something than they had to? So I say if we don't mandate it, then it shouldn't be here. If we can't
Well,
regulate it, I mean.
right, I knew what you meant, and I'm glad you corrected that. But um, what do you think is going to be the outcome of the agenda that is coming up? Do you think that the staff is prepared and ready for that conversation?
Well, actually, on the 31st, I mean, I don't know whether or not staff, it plans on presenting anything for that. It's very simple. This is a first reading for an ordinance for a retroactive moratorium, carving out any property that was damaged during the three storms, as Bill 180, stated, which will give us a little better legal grounding. And then, if the commission votes in the majority to enact um, that piece of legislation, that ordinance, then it'll go to a second reading. And I would expect it'll probably be legally challenged by the applicant.
Uh, I would say yes. But that's again, wouldn't that be considered a normal process through these transitions? I think it would.
Well, I don't know.
I
Maybe.
think both sides try to figure things out. I think both sides are trying to implement things and restrictions in to protect the citizens and
Right.
nature. At the same time, I think that whoever's building it is trying to get what they want. I, I,
I mean,
that's the American way. Sorry.
well, I hear it. I just, like I say, we don't have any regulation. We should have 18 months time to study this, work and talk with an applicant who wants to try to do something. I mean, we don't have any idea what it is they even, in terms of details, what it is they might want to build yet. You know what I mean? The process isn't that far along. The application, general application's been submitted, and I mean, to me, if a developer comes into your community and wants to be a good partner and work with the city to see to it that it's a win-win relationship, then one would hope that they would understand that the governing body needs to protect the interests of the citizens, and a moratorium does that. Now, time is money, so these people obviously are going to say, "Whoa, we've worked all these years to accumulate all this land. Now we want to move forward, and y'all are tying us up for 18 months." And I'm sure that's they're going to have an argument, and we'll just see. I don't know what my fellow commissioners are going to do. For all I know, my fellow commissioners may say, well, based on the advice of counsel, we probably shouldn't make this retroactive. Well, I was the one who made the motion. I want a retroactive moratorium, and I want to hear what the court has to say, and I want to plead a case before a court and before a judge, because quite frankly, you know, Bill 484 was passed by the governor and signed into law July 1. I don't know whether it supersedes 180 or Bert Harris, but it does say that local government should be able to regulate land use with regard to data centers. So what does that really mean? I mean, is that just a bunch of words, and all the other preemptions just, you know, preempt even Bill 484 that just came by recently with its full intent to protect local government from data centers being built where they shouldn't be built? So, I don't know. This will all play itself out one way or the other. Interestingly enough, little old Northport becomes a lightning rod for this project, but you know, it's it's pretty clear how the public feels about it. And I appreciate that, you know, some of it's emotional, some of it's, based on information that's out there. People are entitled to feel how they do, and I'm looking forward to them all coming and sharing their thoughts on the 31st, and then on the 3rd of September when the city hosts a workshop in Chambers that's going to bring in some subject matter experts from FPL and Peace River and other places to talk about how data centers impact the community and what resources they have. So this is the beginning of a process, I would think, and we're just going to have to figure it out. But right now, as far as I'm concerned, with the inability of our city government to regulate what gets built with regard to a data center, I do not support it, and I will do everything I can to stop it. And that's how I feel, and that's how I'm going to continue to behave right up through whenever this gets resolved one way or the other.
Okay. Um, can't say I'd argue that point. can't say I do it any different. You are more privileged to have more information at this point than I, and so is staff, and so is the rest of the commission. But that's why you're an elected official.
I don't
So
have more information. That's part of the problem. I don't have any more information than you all have
that's
because
scary.
I'm not part of the NDA. Okay, city manager who back in 2021, when the sitting commission back then instituted NDAs, okay, city manager can bind the city officials, and they did that, I'm sure, for indemnification purposes and legal reasons to protect city staff and make sure that since the state had said that any applicant of a project could ask for confidentiality with regard to public records requests. I'm sure most towns, municipalities enacted, if they didn't have NDAs, went ahead and put them in place to protect their people. Now, we're not read in. City manager cannot bind the city commissioners to any non-disclosure agreements. We don't work for him. Okay, staff works for commission. So consequently, those NDAs aren't binding on us, but we're also not read in on them. It's another item that's on the agenda, the 31st, a discussion of non-disclosure agreements, how they impact commission and decision making and transparency. So that's another area we're going to have to take a look at because, you know, quite frankly, if we had learned of this project way back, perhaps we could already have had the regulation we need written. So anyway, this is, one of
It's
those
like
situations
it's
that's
like everything else we talk about. You can't go backwards, but you can definitely try to figure out a way to move forward.
That's all we can do. And, you try to fix things and right things that were wrong. And, we're going to address these issues. NDAs, we're going to address administrative approvals, we're going to address regulation. Those other three items are every bit as important as enacting the first reading of an ordinance for a retroactive moratorium. So, the meeting on the 31st will be very interesting. I don't know how long it's going to run depends on all the public commenting, which I expect is going to be significant. But I would suggest those who want to ride it out bring their pajamas and you know, because we could be
It sounds
there
like a
late
record
into
breaker.
the night.
Sounds like a record breaker to me.
it's
Um,
it's a possibility, or or we'll have to like break it off at with some of the other items and then pick it up in another meeting if we have to. If everybody burns out, you still want to make good decisions. You don't want to run yourself into the ground. But these issues have to be addressed.
they
I
do.
mean, they
They
just
do.
have to be. We have to fix things that aren't working as well as we want, and we need to address issues, its ideas, its solutions, and its decisions. Okay, that's what leadership does. Candidates tell you all the BS they want to tell you. They tell you all the stuff they think they can do, all these great ideas, but the bottom line is, in if you're a sitting commissioner, you got to have ideas, solutions, and make decisions for the best interests of the most people with an eye on the future. That's, I mean, that's just the reality, whether it's me or whether it's anybody.
So we're gonna cut this off. We're after 4 o'clock already, so I appreciate one you staying on extra
Time
time.
always
I
flies.
appreciate everybody watching. Please share this information. The more people that get to see it and hear the information, uh, one, it's just power to the people. That's why we do these shows. There is a town hall meeting that I saw that the city is going to host. Please check out their website. Check them out all the time because they do provide a lot of great information on the City of Northport website. The communications teams do a great job, and just send some kudos out to all of them, whether it be the fire department, the police department, or the City of Northport's communications team. Everyone should be paying attention to them. They're all working hard to get you the information you need to be educated on topic. So check out the website. I'll talk at you soon, Phil, and thanks for everybody watching Real Talk, and we'll see you next Monday, which
Thank you,
we will
John.
have. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I say thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Have a blessed night, everybody. City of Northport will have a show next Monday. I'll get topic out to you guys soon. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.